Forget gurus. Forget anyone claiming to be an online business expert without going through the challenges of entrepreneurship themselves. The Real Money, Real Business podcast is here to prove the best insights in online business comes from your fellow online business builders. We dig into stories of entrepreneurs selling their business on the Empire Flippers marketplace so that you can learn how they made their business profitable, how they overcame obstacles, and what lessons they learned in their online journey. If you want to take your business and your knowledge to the next level, you've come to the right podcast. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, Brandon here with another great business to discuss on this episode of the Real Money, Real Business podcast. Today's guest is Nathan, and he's selling his affiliate and display advertising business on the Empire Flippers marketplace. So welcome to the show, Nathan, and how are you doing today?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's really nice to have you on the call, and I'm excited to talk to you about this business you've created. But before we get into the details and your history with the business, why don't we give a general overview? So it is an affiliate and display advertising business in the information niche created in March 2010. The average monthly revenue for the business is $7,764 and makes an average of $6,386 per month in net profit. For everyone listening, you can visit empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing 52161 to learn more about the business, or you can unlock this listing to start your due diligence if you're interested in purchasing this asset. So now that I've given a general overview of the business, what is included in the sale is the primary domain and all of the site's content and files, 2 additional domains used as 301 redirects, an email list with over 1,008 subscribers stored in MailChimp, a Jetpack premium plugin license, social media accounts for Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest, affiliate contacts and relationships, and it is worth noting that we recommend interested buyers have an approved AdSense account to aid a successful migration of the business. So, Nathan, can you tell us a little bit about your background in building and running online businesses?
Yeah, so I kind of stumbled into the business. I was working various jobs, not internet related, in 2010, but I knew a little bit of HTML and CSS. I started helping local clients build their website, do a little bit of marketing. It turned out I was a little bit better at marketing than I was designing in CSS. So I started helping folks market their businesses. I worked for a marketing agency and got more focused on the SEO part of online marketing. And from there, I started applying a lot of those tactics and strategies to websites that I own and grew from there. And I've been full-time by myself since about 2015.
Wow. So you were able to pivot from kind of running things on the back end for the agency into managing your own business and really scaling on that. Where did you get the idea specifically to go into this specific niche for this particular affiliate and display advertising business?
Honestly, it was, I think the phrase is scratching your own itch. I had noticed that I was Googling and trying to solve a lot of problems that I was having, working for a web design agency, designing my own websites and then also doing SEO and marketing. And honestly, even though there was a lot of information out there, there wasn't information presented in a way that I wanted. It was leading me into forums and, I was having a frustrated time of it. And so I basically started building the site that I would want to have as, someone in marketing and web design.
Okay, so you're ultimately creating a solution for your own problem and ultimately being able to monetize that is really awesome. Great story to hear as well. Now, how does the business primarily make money then? With you having affiliate and display advertising revenue, would you say one makes more over the other?
Yes, far and away. Honestly, the display ads is more of an experiment and just it has a way for me to stay current on, different business models because affiliate partnerships are far and away the primary revenue stream.
Okay. And if the business is doing so great at this time, why are you deciding now you would like to sell it?
Well, that's an excellent question. Basically, because a couple of years ago, one of my clients, take a short step back. So basically, my business, I have websites that I build, own, operate, and hopefully sell. But then I also have a couple clients that are building offline real world businesses. And I do consulting. That's in the past has been a good feedback loop where I take lessons from websites that I'm building, share it with clients, and take business lessons that I'm learning from my clients and apply it to my online businesses. But in the past couple of years, One of my clients has gone into kind of growth mode and is really building a regional and possibly a national brand. And so I'm taking a much bigger role with that. And this one website, it's been very much all about me. I've managed it, writing all the content, managing all the link building. I reached a point where I want to be able to invest more in my clients, some of my other projects. And, it's just a good time to sell this business and hand it off to a buyer who is interested in, doing more writing and really investing in the site and giving it kind of the love that it needs.
Okay, yeah, that's a pretty common thing for a lot of sellers that we have on these calls. It's, not being able to scale the business to its full potential and wanting to pass off the baton to the next owner for them to ultimately take and carry on further. So I completely understand that. Now, was there anything that you learned while growing this business that you plan on applying to maybe future or current projects down the road?
Oh, yeah. One is having a business focus. The site has served a lot of different roles for me. At one time it sent leads to me, and then, those leads would turn into clients. At another time, it was kind of a networking resource. At another time, I would try running online ads or, building an email list. And honestly, its current business model was one of many. And in the past 6 years of the length of the site is the time that I really decided to focus in on the business model that actually works. So for my future projects and, for a successful buyer, I would recommend, once you find a business model that works, to really focus on that business model and, not get distracted by the latest shiny object or, your latest new interests.
Yeah, really solid advice. I think as, online business entrepreneurs or maybe even solopreneurs that are out there listening, we kind of have that tendency to go for that shiny object in hopes that it can just create new possibilities. But really, once you do find something that is a strong driver and consistent, I guess is the key, that's really good to focus on that. Now, was there anything that you tried with this business and it just didn't give you the ROI that you were expecting?
Oh, yeah. For years and years, I ran a newsletter, and I was running a newsletter before newsletters were, super sexy, and before Substack came out, before Stripe, all that. I thought I would monetize it with ads and move it to a subscription model. That just did not work. It was great. It definitely, I met a lot of people through that newsletter, and that was good professionally. But as far as a business model, when it comes to the time that I'm putting in and the money I'm taking out, that just did not work at all, for this asset.
Okay. Yeah, that's understandable. And I'm sure our potential buyers out there that are listening to this call can also see the value in discovering, might not be the correct route for them to take with this business. But if it's a core skill set that they might have, they could potentially, scale that further down the road. Now, where would you say that a majority of your traffic is coming from then? Is most of it coming through organic search traffic, or do you have other avenues of generating traffic to the business?
Yeah, most of the traffic is organic. That organic traffic is mostly Bing and Google, making up the largest portion. I am proud to say, just as a side note, I get a lot of Go traffic. I think that speaks to the type of audience that the website brings in. But there's also a good mix of, some referral traffic from established links that still send readers, from forums and threads and whatnot.
Okay. Now, in terms of marketing, so what is it that you're doing as far as your marketing approach? Are you doing anything with, say, the email list or any other forms of marketing on, say, like social media or anything like that?
Yeah, so the email list, honestly, once I transitioned from, the old newsletter approach to, I guess, more of a typical email list approach where, you get a lead magnet, bring people in on the list, and then send them what they signed up for and then follow it up with new posts, new content, all of that. I've mostly automated it. It's been successful in that I'm not spending any time on it, and it brings in incremental revenue on top of, the revenue that organic traffic drives. As far as social media, I have not invested a lot in social media, mainly just due to my own personal bandwidth and ability to do it well. A lot of the focus that I mentioned before, it goes also in the traffic sources. I've really focused on organic and email. There's definitely opportunity for social, but it's nothing that I've really gone full on in.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, I understand completely, not having quite the bandwidth that we want to be able to scale and grow certain aspects of our businesses. So yeah, I completely understand on that front as well. And, hypothetically speaking, Nathan, if you were to keep this business, what are some of the ways that you would personally try and grow it?
Oh, wow. I think the biggest opportunity would be to expand a lot of the long tail focused content. So I'm not sure how much you keep up with the comings and goings of SEO, but in the past year or the past 3 years, the model for a successful SEO strategy has kind of moved away from, people used to call it the quote unquote skyscraper approach, where you would just write the longest form article, the best article that you possibly could on any given topic, and just do that for lots of topics. Because Google has gotten smarter, they've gotten a lot better at identifying questions and answers. The best SEO strategy is kind of to build out a content and hub and spoke model where, you have a good overview post and then you have lots of little posts addressing specific needs for searchers. And I've moved some in that direction and it's been successful. But again, I don't have the bandwidth to fully execute on that strategy. And so I think a successful buyer would really look into leaning into that strategy and moving into kind of a hub and spoke model for SEO traffic.
Yeah, that's a really interesting approach and a transition, or I guess a pivot into this type of content hub versus the skyscraper method you mentioned. And that kind of leads into my next question for you. So why don't you give our listeners kind of a breakdown of your typical operations or maybe even some of the weekly tasks that you're performing on the business at this time?
Yeah, so right now it's basically 3 kind of general tasks. One is planning out new content. And then 2 is updating or auditing old content. And then 3 is just managing business relations. For planning new content, so far it averages out to be, 2 new pieces of content per month. But honestly, that kind of comes in a batch sequence. The way the business runs seasonally, Q4 is usually quieter than Q1. So usually a lot of my new content I develop in Q4 when things are quieter. And then, quarter 1, 2, and 3, I really focus on updating and auditing a lot of the older content to make sure that it's still relevant, it's still accurate. There are no missing gaps. My niche moves very fast. There's constant updates, not only my affiliate partners, but also in best practices, honestly. And so usually right at the new year, everyone wants to know what's the best way to do this, what's the right way to do it, what are some steps. And so that part of the year, I focus on just updating existing content. And the site has a wide breadth of content that needs editing, and so that usually takes up a lot of time. And then there's also managing business relations. There's a lot of affiliate managers who, they're coming up with creative ways to reach new people. They're also developing new audiences, and they're a really good source of information, to put new angles on new content, to how to update old content, and honestly making sure that the deals and those relationships are all being maintained and everyone's happy doesn't take up a lot of time, but it is a consistent use of time throughout the year.
Okay. So when it comes to producing new content or updating this existing content that's currently on your site, are you taking a more manual approach to this, or have you outsourced any workload to, say, a VA or maybe even some freelance helpers along the journey?
Not in the past couple of years. I used to have an excellent assistant who's no longer working on the site just because of personal reasons. She was great, but right now it's just me. And honestly, it is very manual. Doesn't speak so much to the business as it speaks to me, as I've owned this asset for so long that I really tend to get in the weeds, for better and for worse, for the asset. But yeah, it's a very manual approach that I handle all myself.
Okay. That kind of leads me into my next question for you. So do you feel that there's maybe a particular skill set that a buyer should have prior to acquiring this business? Or do you feel that maybe most of the workload or the operations that you're handling on a personal level right now could be learned during the transition period?
I think a lot of it can be learned, but I do think there's a lot to be learned. I mean, because it's a big strength of the site that I get traffic across a wide range of articles that cover lots and lots of topics. And the site does present expert level content. So all of it can be learned. I learned all of it. I used to not know anything about this niche, but it would definitely allow the buyer to get off and running faster if they were already kind of familiar with the industry and familiar with, best practices that the website, goes into.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy you brought that up because, it's good to be familiar with maybe even some of the affiliate partnerships that you have once someone unlocks this listing, but, also to have maybe even the passion for this particular niche might also benefit a buyer as well, like knowing that you've created the foundation for them and building quality content. To focus on that further would ultimately be the ideal approach. On the flip side of that, what do you feel are maybe some of the potential risks associated with this business that a buyer should be aware of?
I think every buyer should be aware of this site is in a very competitive niche. It's very competitive because it's very lucrative. So there is a lot of money to be made. But again, since there's a lot of money to be made, you have competitors who all have budgets, they all have teams, they all know what goes into creating a successful site. And so, it's the kind of thing where if you're showing up to a race, you want to know who you're racing against. And I definitely would recommend that the buyer become familiar with, the players in the industry, both for affiliates, competitors, and kind of how it works to be successful from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's a solid mention and a great mindset for a potential buyer to have as well, being aware that, while it might be competitive, there is still a lot of room and a lot of potential there as well to capitalize on some serious money. So that's great to mention that at least from the start. Now, Nathan, are you willing to commit to a non-compete, meaning any current or future projects within the next 2 years, you'll stay out of this specific niche?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm still going to be doing online marketing for my clients that are already established, but I don't plan on doing any work in this niche.
Okay, great to hear. And then how much support are you willing to offer potential buyers? Are you going with the typical 30 days of email and Skype support, or did you have something in addition that you would like to add on to that?
Oh, no, I plan on going above and beyond. Obviously, I'm selling this business to open up bandwidth for myself. But again, this is a business that I've owned and run and loved for more than a decade. And so I want to make sure that the successful buyer really understands the business and, they're not just taking it and running it. In addition to the 30 days support, I'm willing to do multiple Skype calls. I'm willing to do, email support for, I think I listed more than 60 days. And then we'll always be around with the same email address. And so, there's a long-term question that comes up. I'm always around. I'm always with email, and I want the successful buyer to succeed.
Yeah, that's really great. I'm sure all of our listeners and potential buyers out there can also see the value in that and you wanting to see the business succeed and their success with the business as well too. So that's really great to hear. Now, are you open to negotiating something like an earnout where you'll receive a large portion of the sales price up front and then smaller payments closing out the deal, say over the course of a couple months after that?
No earnout, but that's mainly just because of my experience with previous deals and then also my need to switch my business focus over to, the clients that I have and the other projects that I have. And again, that kind of goes along with the support. The successful buyer, I think, will be the one that sees the value in it, is able to buy it and come back to me for any support or questions.
Okay. Yeah, that's completely understandable and something that's good to be aware of as well too. And ultimately why we do these seller interviews as well too. So just a few sideline questions for you, Nathan. So what advice would you give to our listeners that you wish you knew when you first started this business?
One is consistency. It's almost cliche, but I think the saying is focus on improving one thing per day rather than 365 things a year. Just take one thing at a time and just be consistent. I think this business had a lot of ups and downs, especially in the beginning. But the difference that I see is that it started doing well when I was able to give it consistent attention and consistent improvement, even if it wasn't a lot of attention. If it was just consistent, a little bit of improvement, consistently, that's what really paid off.
Yeah, solid advice. It's, not getting carried away with doing a million things at the same time and only doing them like half of what you're capable of, but really focusing in and taking that approach where you're going to perfect one thing at a time is really important. So I completely agree with you. Was there any software or tools that might have helped you to stay organized or stay focused on really improving the business one step at a time?
Honestly, the biggest improvement was actually becoming a more power user of Google Calendar. It's really embarrassing, but also very, very true that little things like setting reminders and setting, emails to be sent to yourself, 6 months into the future, a year into the future, those kind of reminders and kind of setting up systems to keep yourself, moving along and not forget the little things. really helped me be more consistent rather than switching from a post-it note approach or general task list.
Yeah, having those reminders are very helpful in my world as well too. Yeah, making sure that you're staying on top of meetings and, just setting those daily reminders as well to stay focused on certain things is a great help. So I'm sure our listeners will get a lot of value from that as well too. And final question for you, Nathan, wrapping up the call, putting yourself in the shoes of a buyer, why do you think that your business is worth buying?
One, the niche that it's in is, like I said before, is ultra competitive and ultra lucrative. And it's hard to get into. And so you could think of my business as almost like the version of the Disney Fast Pass, where instead of showing up to the park and paying your dues, standing in line, my business is an opportunity to go ahead and skip through those 10 years that it took me to get the site where it is, and just to skip right to the stage of growth that it's at and take it from there. So I think that's the biggest value. But then also knowing that I have built and touched every piece of the site. I've never handed it off or outsourced. I know every piece of code in the theme. I know every internal link on the site, so that they can be assured that, they're not buying something that it's multiple teams have touched. They're buying something that I personally have built from scratch, and they can bank on that quality.
Yeah, it's funny. I love what you said about this business being a Disney LastPass and skipping the line and all the years of work it took you to build the foundation for this business and ultimately getting, that free pass to the front. I think I might have to use that more often when I'm describing online businesses that we have in our marketplace, because that is ultimately what it is, right? You're skipping that long line, the waiting game, the trial and error that goes into building a business from scratch, and you're getting directly into something that you can take and scale further, already having a solid foundation. So I think that's really great. And that pretty much wraps up this call, Nathan. Was there anything else that you'd like to share that I might have missed?
No, thanks for the interview. And the listeners, you can find me everywhere online. I tell people, I'm actually on my Twitter handle and I'm behind my actual email. There's no team. So if there's ever any questions or you want to track me down, you'll find the real person.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm sure our listeners, again, will see that value in the support and any wanting to see this business be successful, and also just, again, building the quality foundation that they could ultimately take that pass and run to the front and keep going. So it's really great. I appreciate you jumping on the call with us today, Nathan, and, looking forward to seeing this listing getting sold for you here in the near future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brandon.
All right. Thank you. And all right, everyone. So thanks for listening. To learn more and to see if this listing has already been sold, head over to empireflippers.com/marketplace and search for listing number 52161. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the link in the description to go straight to the listing. And once you've unlocked this listing, you'll be given everything you need to know about this business. So until next time, enjoy your digital journey.